supposed to stand?
Good question. I don't really know the answer.
Are you saying a blessing?
I'm gonna as soon as I get
Then I'll
it.
stand.
Supposed to say it as you like.
It's after, actually. There we go. Baruch atah Eloheinu melech haolam,
Asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu l'adlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim la'avoteinu, bayamim ha'em, ba'azman hazeh.
Wait one more minute.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully
the
we'll get
Shabbat candles you light first and then say the blessing?
This first.
Right, because once you do like the
Yeah.
Shabbat thing,
No,
you
no.
can't.
Oh,
No,
yeah. You're
not
saying
with
the
Shabbat.
order of the
I'm saying
blessing?
when you light Shabbat, not if it's Shabbat and Hanukkah, but when you light Shabbat candles, you light it first.
Do you remember the answer to this? We had a whole big
No, I know
argument
the
about
answer.
I
Oh.
always thought the answer is when you say Lahadlik, then you're supposed to light, because that's to kindle.
Well, so what I was told is once you say the blessings, Shabbat starts and you're not allowed to light them. So the custom of how the women cover their eyes
Yeah.
when they do it
That's
is
true.
that so you light it when you're allowed to light it and you cover your eyes so that when you're saying the blessing you don't see the lit candle as if it's already lit, and then it's like when you, because I could never understand the
Yeah, I didn't know what that was.
hand covering
That's-
thing, and so
So
then
what
I,
difference does it make? So you, because you know you lit it. You can't see it.
I guess it
Why are you not supposed to see it? If you lit it before
I
it was
think
actually
you're-
Shabbat.
because you're supposed to say the blessing like while you're lighting it or after it's lit or something like that. So that's how they got. I mean, Rabbi Bloom will give a better explanation than I could, but I remember asking someone at some point. I couldn't. When I was lighting candles, I'm like, that's so ridiculous. I'm not doing that thing with my hands. Why do people do it? And
And you got the
I
answer.
was told.
There were
I
probably
understood too, it was like bringing in the heat and the warmth of Shabbat, that that's what you're doing when you're doing.
When you move your hands, but
Yeah.
but you start like that, but then you cover
Then you
your
cover your
eyes.
eyes.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's probably
Other reasons.
arguments,
Many, yeah.
arguments about how it's supposed to be. Right?
Yes.
Because after all,
It's like they cover the challah so it doesn't get jealous because you say the blessing on the wine first. It's something that
That's a good one.
I thought it was a good.
That's like a fun explanation.
maybe if we start singing, some people will join us.
Yes.
There are more coming.
Good. Okay, page 5. Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz Shiru Ladonai Baruch Shemo Basru Miyom Liyom Yeshuato Sapru Hagoyim Kevodo L'Kol Ha'amim Niflotav Ki Gadol Adonai U'Hu Me'od Norahu Al Kol Elohim Yain 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 Ki Kol Elohei Ha'amim Elilim Ba'adonai Shamayim Asa Od V'Hadar Lefanav Rosh V'Tiferet V'Mikdasho Havu Ladonai Mishpechot Amim Havu Ladonai Kavos Havu Ladonai Kevod Shemo Seu Micha Uvol Lechatzrotav Yain Yain Yishtachavu Ladonai Behadrat Kodesh Lilu Mipanav Kol Haaretz Imru Vagoyim Adonai Malach Alki Kotev Baltimot Yadinamim B'Meisharim Yismechu Hashemayim B'Tagil Haaretz Yiram hayam umelo yalo sadai v'chol asher bo yai az yiranenu kol atzeyar lifnei Adonai Kiva lishpot haaretz yishpot tevel b'tzedek ve'amim be'emunato Page 12. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishachavu l'har kodesho. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishachavu l'har kodesho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishachavu l'har kodesho. Page 13. Mizmor leDavid, havu l'Adonai b'nei Elim, havu l'Adonai kavod va'oz, havu l'Adonai kevod shemo ishach, havu l'Adonai b'hadrat kodesh, kol Adonai al hamayim el hakavod yirim. Adonai Almayim Rabim Kol Adonai Bako Acharnai Kol Adonai Ve'adar Kol Adonai Shaber Arazim Shaber Adonai Et Amzei Almanon Vayarkidem Kemo Egel Lebanon, Sirion, Kemo ben Re'emim, Hai, Kol Adonai, Chotef Lavotesh, Kol Adonai, Yachil Midbar, Yachil Adonai Midbar Kadesh, Kol Adonai, Yechol Elayalot. Vayechesot Ye'arot Uvechalot Lo Omer Kavod Yai Adonai Lama Buyashava Yeshev Adonai Melech Le'olam Adonai Oz Le'amo Yiten Adonai Yevarech Et Amo B'Shalom Yai Page 15. L'chadodi likrat kala, p'nei Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, p'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor v'dibor echad, Hishmiyanu el Hamyachad, Adonai echad, U'shemo echad, L'shem al tiferet v'litila. L'chadodi likrat kala, Pene Shabbat Nekabela, Lechadoni Likra Kala, Pene Shabbat Nekabela, Likra Shabbat Lechuvenecha, Ki Mekor Habracha Merosh Mikedem Nesucha, Sof Maaseh B'machshavat Tefillah. Lecha Dodi Likra Kala, Pene Shabbat Nekabela, Lecha Dodi Likra Kala, Pene Shabbat Nekabela. Bottom of 17. Yaminu Smol Tifrotzi, Yet Adonai Taritzi, Al Yadi Shven Partzi, Venismecha Benagila, Lecha Dodi Likra Kala, Pene Shabbat Nekabela, Lecha Dodi Likra Kala, Pene Shabbat Nekabela. We rise and face the entrance to welcome the Shabbat bride. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha tzala, tov emunei am segula, boi chala, lecha dodi likra kala, pene shabbat nekabela, Lecha Dodi Likra Kala, Pene Shabbat Nekabela. Can be seated, and for any mourners who may be with us tonight, I'm coming to B'tov Shara Le'Tzion Yerushalayim. May God comfort you among the other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. We are on page 19. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat Tov Le'Hodo L'Adonai Uzamer L'Shimcha Elyon Uzamer L'Shimcha Elyon L'Hagid B'Boker Chasdecha Ve'emunatcha B'Leilot Alei Asor V'Alei Navel Alei Higayon B'Chinor Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat Tov Le'Hodo L'Adonai U'Lezamer L'Shimcha Elyon U'Lezamer L'Shimcha Elyon. Continue silently. Tzadik Tamar Yifrach Ke'erez Balbanon Yizkeh Shetuli B'Beit Adonai B'Chatzrot Eloheinu Ya'africhu Od Yenuben B'Seva T'Shenim B'Rananim Yiyu L'Hagid Ki Ashar Adonai Tzuri V'Lo Avlatabo Adonai Malachi Lavesh Adonai Osi Tazar Hafti Kotevel Al Timot Nachum Kisacham Me'az Me'elam Ata Nasu Narot Adonai Nasu Narot Kolam Yisu Narot Tov Yam Mi Kolot Mayim Mayim Rabim Atirim Mishvarei Yam Adir B'Marom Adonai Eidotecha Nenu Me'od Levetecha Nava Kodesh Adonai Leorech Yamin. Page 22, please rise for the Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch le'olam va'ed. You can be seated. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv harabim. Borei yom v'layla kol leil or mignei choshech v'choshech mignei or ma'avir yom u'mei layla ma'avil ben yom u'bein layla Adonai tzvaot shemo el chai v'kayam tamid lo chaleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai ma'ariv harabim. On page 24. Ahavat olam ben Yisrael amchata Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadeta Al ken Adonai Eloheinu v'shachveinu u'vkumeinu nasiach v'kecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha u'b'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed Ki hem chayenu v'yorech yameinu u'barhem nege yamam v'alala V'yavaka al tasir mimenu li'olami Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Page 25. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol lavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu ha'harim ha'ele Asher Anochi mitzavacha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibartam v'shitecha v'leitecha v'lemtecha v'derech u'v'shachvecha u'v'chumecha u'kshartam liot al yadecha v'hayu l'totafot v'einecha Uktavtam al mezuzot beitacha ubisharecha. Leman tizkaru v'asitena kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim leloechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher tzeti echem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. Top of page 32. Malchuta baratzon kiblu alehem Moshe b'nei Yisrael l'cha'an Yeshir b'simcha rabah v'yamru kulam Michamocha ba'elim Adonai Michamocha never kodesh norah tehilot osefele Malchutecha ra'uvanecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe za'elianu v'yamru Adonai yidlov le'olam va'ed V'ne'emar ki fad Adonai et Yaakov u'galu miyad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Ka'al Yisrael. Top of page 33. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'holidenu malkeinu l'chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'holidenu malkeinu l'chaim Ushmor tzeitenu uvoenu l'chaim u'shalom Yatav Yadolam. Hashivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'Hamidenu Malkeinu L'Chaim. Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha Baruch Atah Adonai Haporei Sukkot Shalom Aleinu V'Yal Kol Amo Yisrael V'Yal Yerushalayim. Please rise for V'Shamru, middle of page 34. V'Shamru B'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat Lasot et HaShabbat L'Dorotam Berit Olam Beini u'bein B'nei Yisrael Oti Le'olam Oti Le'olam Oti Le'olam V'Shamru B'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat Lasot et HaShabbat L'Dorotam Berit Olam Ki shesha yamim asa Adonai el hashamayim v'et haaretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat lasot et hashabat l'dorotam berit olam u'bayom hashvi'i shabbat v'yinafash Shabbat v'yinafash, Shabbat v'yinafash, v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, lasot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam. So I'm hearing some excellent singing over here. Any chance that you know the Chatzi Kaddish?
Me?
No, not you.
No.
No. Okay.
A little nervous.
It's coming. Okay. Doing great. Yitkada v'yitkada shemei rabba Yom tivrach yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh v'chayechom yom echom v'chayed v'chom beit Yisrael Bagala u'bizman karim v'maru
Amen.
Yesh me'rav mevorach Le'olam le'omei omaya Yitbarach Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yirama v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei kudashah Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Da'amiram v'yoma v'yimaru Amen. Okay, it's time for the silent Amidah. I want to point out one thing to you. When you get to the Modi Manach Nulach, which is on page 45, at the bottom of the page, you will see it says on Hanukkah, go to page 275. So there's a special prayer for Hanukkah. You'll go to 275, and then you'll come back and pick it back up on 46. Shalom Yisrael Amcha Tasi Leolam. Shalom Yisrael Amcha Tasi Leolam. Ki Atahu Melech Adon L'chol HaShalom. Ki Atahu Melech Adon L'chol HaShalom. Shalom Yisrael Amcha Tasi Leolam. Shalom Yisrael Amcha Tasi Leolam. V'tov b'necha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Yisrael Amcha Tasi Leolam. Shalom Yisrael Amcha Tasi Leolam. Tasi Leolam. Paul, you want to do by Chulin?
You mean the whole?
Yeah.
Matir Tefillah, yeah. And the Kaddish also? Yeah?
Yes.
ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, קונה שמיים וארץ, מגן אבות בדברו, המחיה מתים במאמרו, האל הקדוש שאין כמוהו, המניח לעמו ביום שבת קודשו. כי הם רצה להניח להם, כי הם רצה להניח להם, לפניו נעבוד ביראה ופחד, ונודה לשמו בכל יום תמיד מעין הברכות. אל ההודעות אדון השלום, מקדש השבת ומברך שבי, ומניח בקדושה ליעמדו שני יוני, זכר למעשה וראשי. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, רצה במנוחתנו, קדשנו במצוותיך, ותן חלקנו בתורתך. שבנו מטובך, ושמחנו בישועתך. וטהר ליבנו לעובדך באמת, וטהר ליבנו לעובדך באמת. והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון שבת קודשך, Veyanu chuva, Yisrael, Yisrael, Mekadshei Shemecha, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Yikadal v'yikadash Shemei Rabbah, Ve'amad yivrach chirutei, Ve'amlich malchutei b'chayechonu v'yamechonu b'chayei l'chol Beit Yisrael, V'galav b'zman kariv imaru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevarach, Le'olam le'omaya yibarach. Yibarach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yitorma v'yinasei, V'yithadar v'yitala v'yitalal Shemei l'kudsha b'richu, Le'la min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran be'alma v'imaru, Amen. Tikabel tzolodonu v'adon d'chol Yisrael, Kadam avon yivishmaya v'imaru, Amen. Yeshlam Rav min Shemaya v'chayim, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imaru, Amen. Oseh shalom v'imramav, hu yaseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imeru, Amen. Thank you.
Okay, so a few brief words about the Parsha this week, which is Miketz. And even though it's Hanukkah, so Hanukkah is a rabbinic holiday. It's not in the Torah called out specifically. So it doesn't kind of have the same status. On the other holidays, we read specific parts of the Torah, and they supersede the regular Parsha, but not this week. There is a special maftir that we read, so it kind of has some status, but not the full status. Anyhow, so Miketz, we're in the middle of the story of Joseph, which to me is like one of the more interesting stories. It goes on for several different parshiot in the Torah, and we left off with kind of a cliffhanger last week, where Joseph was in prison and he interpreted the dreams of the baker and the cupbearer, and lo and behold, as he predicted, the baker was killed and the cupbearer was going to be released, and he asks him to remember him and put in a good word for him with Pharaoh. And now we pick up the Parsha this week in Miketz, and it's 2 years later. And to start with, 2 years went by, so the cupbearer did not really fulfill what Joseph asked and put in a good word for him. He's been in jail for 2 more years. But he does remember Pharaoh has a dream of 7 cows, 7 plump cows, and 7 lean cows, and 7 ears of corn. No one can interpret it. And the cupbearer remembers there's this guy in jail that I met, Joseph, and he was pretty good at this. You might want to call him. So lo and behold, he does. He interprets the dream, and he predicts that there's going to be 7 bountiful years and followed by 7 years of famine. And so Pharaoh is astounded. This is great. They have concocted a plan for how to prepare for all this, which may not be the best plan, but they do come up with it. And lo and behold, there's a famine. And so everybody, Egypt has been prepared for this, and the surrounding nations are not. And lo and behold, Jacob knows that in Egypt they have produce and grain, and he sends his sons down there to go get some, to buy some. But he leaves Benjamin, the youngest one, behind because he thinks it might be too dangerous. And they think they left him in the pit. They think he's out of our life. You know, as far as they know, they don't know that he's now risen. Pharaoh was so impressed that he appointed him as sort of like his prime minister. He's kind of the chief guy in Egypt. He's, an honorary guy. He's sort of the COO of the whole place. So the brothers come down, and Joseph, earlier had one of the things that made him mad was he said, you guys are going to bow down to me. Well, sure enough, they come down to Egypt, and before they asked to buy the produce, they do bow down to him. So he was right about that. But they come down there, and they don't recognize him. He does recognize them. And he accuses that he knows who they are, but he accuses them of being spies, so he's a little bit deceitful here. And he says, you need to come back, bring your other brother back here, Benjamin, and I'm going to keep Shimon until you do. And so they come back with Benjamin, they have a nice meal, but Joseph plants a silver goblet in Benjamin's pack, and then he sends one of his assistants out there, and he accuses them of theft, and so he keeps Benjamin as a slave. So all that happens in this parsha. It's really like a novel. I mean, that's why they made a Broadway play out of all this. Anyhow, I want to talk about one famous line that's in the Parsha, which is Vayaker Yosef et Echav v'hem lo hikiruhu. And Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. So on the surface, this is understandable because it's many years later. As I said, they forgot about Joseph. They're like, this guy's out of our life, which is what they wanted. It's 20 years since they've even seen him when he was a teenager. He was 17 when they did this to him. He's now a grown man. He speaks Egyptian. He's got robes on and a gold thing that Pharaoh had him wear. And he's a dignitary. So, there's no way that they think this guy is our brother. But those words, that sentence that he recognized them, but they didn't recognize him, maybe that has another meaning. So Bereshit's full of sibling rivalries. We've had Cain and Abel, Isaac and Ishmael, Jacob and Esau, and now we have Joseph and his brothers. So there's this common theme, and it's always a younger one that usually seems to get favored somehow. And his brothers really hated him. They despised him. He was arrogant, an annoying pest. And when they got rid of him, they concocted a story to tell their father that maybe an animal got him. As far as they were concerned, he's gone. And they never really considered Joseph to be one of them, part of their family. They never recognized him. So I read an interesting piece from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Olav Hashalom. He's from England. If you've ever read any of his stuff, he's really a kind of a genius. But he compares the story of Joseph to the Jewish people. And even though Judaism was the first monotheistic religion, the two other religions, Christianity and Islam, are both Abrahamic. They believe that Abraham was the start of all this. And he compares the relationship of these three religions to a sibling rivalry and compares the Jewish people to Joseph. So how does this work? Well, there have been a lot of times when the Jews have lived side by side with our brothers in peace and very well, and then too many others where we were expelled, asked to leave in hopes that we'd never be heard from again. And then we went through the Holocaust, where they tried to exterminate us, and then lo and behold, on May 14th, 1948, the state of Israel was born and officially recognized. And the day that Israel came into being, David Ben-Gurion declared that Israel sought peace with all the neighbors in the Middle East, and of course the next day Israel was attacked. There's an excerpt from the Declaration of Independence of the State of Israel that I'm going to read. We extend our hand to all neighboring states and their people in an offer of peace and good neighborliness, and appeal to them to establish bonds of cooperation and mutual help with the sovereign Jewish people settled in its own land. The state of Israel is prepared to do its share in a common effort for the advancement of the entire Middle East. That is in their Declaration of Independence. Whether you believe they've lived up to it or not, it does say that. Compare that to the intentions of some of its neighbors. So Hamas, in their charter, calls for the obliteration of Israel. Hezbollah, in its charter, says our struggle will end only when this entity is obliterated. The state of Iran, various Iranian officers in their ruling regime have called for Israel to be wiped off the map. So, this isn't a political argument. It's not an argument over boundaries. It's really religious doctrine. They just believe Israel should not exist. So that line, Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. I found that metaphor to be compelling, as Rabbi Sachs pointed out. So for the first time, we have some hope, I think, right now. The recent events in the Middle East, the military efforts primarily of Israel, and the fall of Assad in Syria are reshaping the entire community there. And while there are still many problems to resolve, I hope, let us all hope, that we recognize our brothers and sisters and that they recognize us, and we can live side by side with shalom in peace. Shabbat shalom. And we will continue with the Kiddush on page 55. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
Asher Kishon Mitzvotah V'Ratzavanu V'Shabbat Kodsho V'Ahavat Ratzon Inkilanu Zikaron L'Mahaseh Bereshit Ki Yom Tefillah L'Mikra'e Kodesh Zecher L'Tzion Mitzrayim Kivanu Lacharta V'Yotanu Kidashta Mikol Ha'amim V'Shabbat Kodshecha V'Ahava U'Ratzon Yinchaltanu Baruch Atah Adonai L'Kadesh HaShabbat.
If you are near your children or anyone else who you'd like to bless, page 56, Yisim Elohim Kefraim B'Chim Menashe. For girls, Yisim Mech Elohim Kesar Rivka Rachel B'Leah. Yivarech Adonai V'Yishmerecha. Yo'er Adonai Panav Elecha V'Yidunecha. Yisa Adonai Panav Elecha V'Yasem Lecha Shalom. May God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine on you and be gracious unto you. May God lift the divine face toward you and grant you peace. Amen. Remain standing for the Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol atei kedula liotzer bereshit shelo asanu k'goyei haratzon velo samanu k'nishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chalkeinu kahem v'goraleinu k'chol hamonam v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim Alifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shehu Noteh Shamayim V'Yosed Haaretz U'Moshav Yikaro V'Shamayim Imaha U'Shchinatu Zo V'Gadei Meromim Hu Eloheinu Einod Emet Malkeinu Efezulato Kakatu V'Torato V'Yatata Yom V'Hashivota Elevavecha Ki Adonai Hu Elohim V'Shamayim Nima V'Yala Haaretz V'Yala Haaretz Mitachat Einod Einod. Hakatu v'Toratecha Adonai Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed V'Nemar V'Haya Adonai L'Melech HaKol Haaretz V'Yom Hahu Yeh Adonai Echad U'Shemo Echad. You can be seated. This Shabbat, we lovingly recall the memory of our departed relatives and friends whose yahrzeit we observed during the week of the 27th of Kislev through the 3rd of Tevet. Yitzchak and Tebi, Samuel Bernstein, Mark S. Bloom, Reuben Curtin, Joseph Dorfman, Daniel Thomas Frankel, David Friedman, Michael Robert Gelfand, Morris Gelfand, Samuel Gewurtz, Sidney Gordon, Marina Gottschalk, Jack Gray, Betty Gordon Grinberg, William Hebert, Melanie Kepler, Leslie Kessler, Kalman Klein, Jacob Kronrod, Bessie Kvint, Rabbi Philip Lang, Morris Levitt, Robert Lopez, David Mayer, Ethel Mayer, Rita Malamerson, Raymond Nagar, David Ormsby, Harold Reed, Israel Rogers, Gerald Schoenblum, Fanny Shapiro, Israel Stamer, Samuel David Strongen, Paul Troff, Robert S. Wallerstein, Shirley Weiner, Elliot Weinstein, Sidney Winchell, and Frida Zilberberg. And in recent days, Harvey Broff, the father of Flo Raskin, Susan Lazimi, mother of Carolyn Hastings, Joseph Sutton, the husband of Yvette Sutton, and Barry Turchin, the brother of Freya Turchin. For all those observing yahrzeit, for anyone else whose custom it is, the
Mourner's Kaddish is on page 61. V'yitkadal, v'yitkadash shemei rabbah.
Amen.
V'yamad yivrach yiruteh, v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon, v'yomechon, v'chayedechol beit Yisrael. Bagala ubizman kariv v'imru
Amen.
Yehi shmei Rabbah Mevarach le'olam lo me'amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbahar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudashah
B'richu.
Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata ta'amiram b'yalma v'imru
Amen.
Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'yar kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu v'yar kol Yisrael v'imru.
Amen.
Okay, before we conclude, some brief announcements. Services tomorrow are in the sanctuary at 9:30. There is a guest speaker. Her name is Emma Goss, and she's a reporter with the J, and she's also, I think, a correspondent for NBC, and she's going to talk about, she followed couples who met on the personal ads back like 40 years ago and followed them to what's happening with them today, and did something with that, so that should be interesting. Let's see, a few events this week. PJ Library's Winter Play, 10 a.m. in the Social Hall on Sunday. The Gan and the Beit Sefer are closed. There's no text study. Next Saturday, there's Shabbat Mishpacha at 10:30, and there's Mahjong after Kiddush. And on Thursday, January 9th, WTBA Girls Night Out, moving into the new year at 7 p.m. in the Social Hall. And that's enough for now. And we can conclude on page 63. Yigdal Elohim Chai v'yishchabach nimtza b'yeinei tel tziyuto echad bin yachid keyichudo melam v'gam ein sof le'achduto ein lo demutat guf ve'eino guf lo na'roch elav kedushato Kadmon l'chol davar asher nivra rishon v'en reshit l'reshito Hino adon olam l'chol nosar yorek gdulato malchuto shefanu ato netano el anshe segulato v'tifarto lo kam b'Yisrael k'Moshe Navi Umavi Tetmunato Torahtem et Natan Le'amoel Al Yad Neviyo Neman Beto Lo Yachalifa El Lo Yamir Dato Le'olami L'Zulato Sofer Yodea Setarenu Mavi L'Sof Davar Bekadmato Gomel ish chesed k'mifalo Noten l'rosh hara k'rishato Yishlach l'ketz yamim l'shichenu Livdot l'chakeketz yeshuato Meitim yechayel b'rov chasto Baruch Adei Hashem Tehilato Meitim Yechayel V'rov Chasto Baruch Adei Hashem Tehilato. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for coming.
Shalom.
Shalom.